Yes, South Africa has finally legalized cannabis. President Cyril Ramaphosa has signed a bill that legalizes the possession and cultivation of cannabis use among adults. So South Africa has joined the League of Cannabis-Loving Nations when the president signed the Cannabis for Private Persons Act into law one day before the national elections. So that's still panning out. We're going to see how that went for him. Hopefully that panned out well for him. So they are basically going to take cannabis off of their version of the controlled substance scheduling system, but they're not going to put a legal market into place. Oh, no, no. So possession and consumption, that's cool. But it looks like you're going to have to grow your own, guys. No selling in South Africa, unfortunately. But a lot of people in the government, a lot of cannabis activists, they're hoping this is just going to be a baby step. You know, get people over that hump of prohibition, and the next legal thing will be sales. At least that's what they're hoping, because it took so long to even get here. Now, back in 2018, we're talking 6 years ago, a South African court decided that possession and cultivation were not against the law, and that the government had 2 years. Guys, we give you 2 years, fix the laws, change this, make this right. Now, 2 years later, in 2020, they actually had a bill ready on time to go. But for one reason or another, I couldn't figure out why, here we are in 2024, just signing it now, right? So South Africa has been the home to the apartheid movement from 1948 all the way to 1994, where the all-white government enacted policies that effectively segregated their society along racial lines. And just like in other racially charged places in the world, the U.S., cannabis, or daga as the locals call it, found itself right in the middle of the argument. Now, South Africans have been cultivating hemp for centuries. They've been doing it for a very, very long time. But the British started losing their mind in the 1800s, late 1800s, when they were bringing Indian workers over, obviously from India, and they were smoking their Indian hemp. And they said this made them absolutely useless for work, and they immediately classified cannabis as a poison. In fact, this is one of the first instances of cannabis prohibition being used as racial discrimination. Funny enough, look at that. And South African government, another little fun fact here, the South African government is one of the reasons that the League of Nations banned international cannabis sales, but at the same time they banned opium back in the 20s. It was the South African government that got them to do that. So thanks a lot, South Africa. Appreciate you. So back in 1952, right, apartheid movement was just getting going. There was a big government report that came out on daga, or marijuana. This is one of those things that had really no science to it, but absolutely trashed marijuana and all the ethnicities, all the religions that actually used it. And this kind of set the stage for a really big crackdown going on in the country. So when Nixon launched his war on drugs back in 1971, South Africa immediately followed suit, and they came out with the Abuse of Dependence Producing Substances and Rehabilitation Centers Act of 1971. That was their big War on Drugs Act. And in the first 2 years of that being implemented, over 77,000 people were arrested. And you guessed it, almost all of them were young black males. And 20 years later, actually, some people consider the Drugs and Drug Trafficking Act of 1992, 20 years later, that expanded on those very same policies that were in play the whole time, was one of the last laws of apartheid that was actually passed before apartheid came crashing down.